Well, look at this, Renee. What are we talking about today?
Well, this one's going to be a fun conversation because we were shooting for how to change systems without the pain. But the more we dove in, can you really? I don't know.
Right.
So we're going to talk about making it less painful, but at the same time, sometimes with change it just hurts. So we're going to chat about that. But before we do that, we're getting into your travel season, and spring is around the corner. So how is it going on the farm? Are you getting things ready for like who's hauling the grain while you are on the road? I mean, what's going to happen here?
Well, nobody's hauling grain because grain's not worth anything these days. So let's not start that
Oh,
conversation right
oh,
now.
that's right. We're selling bottle caps for better
We're
yield.
selling bottle caps because that's worth more than
I hear you. Okay.
my great grandfather's bottle cap collection right now is far more, I guess, a
Valuable than the corn. What can we
revenue
do?
generator than selling grain here in the state of Iowa. So
Have you tried to bury them to see if you can build a crop of bottle caps? I mean,
I don't know. I
maybe.
think they'll grow if
I
only I
don't know. I
could.
don't know.
It
Do they
might be a
replicate?
better cash crop than what we have. No, it's that time of year where I mean, and thank goodness that if the more things I sign up to go to, the more free dinners and lunches that I get.
Oh,
So I'm going to
free
all
dinners.
the different farmer things, whether it's the Soy Association, Precision Planting,
So I have
Bear,
I have a question for you.
yeah.
So what's Jennifer's go-to snack or meal when you're at a farmer dinner that she doesn't have to go to? Does she have like the go-to, this is what I eat when Jason's not here? I have
Oh,
those for
yes.
myself.
Yes. Yeah. She has a list of restaurants where she will just
Oh,
grab
she does
something.
restaurants. Oh,
Yeah,
I'm
she
not
will
that
grab
classy.
takeout.
Mine's
Oh,
like
she will.
popcorn and cheese or a bowl of cereal or just random. And I'm
Oh
like,
no, she
oh,
would
I
she
don't
would
have to
rather
do
pick
anything.
something up for
Oh, okay.
sure.
She's a pick something up girl. I like it.
Yes.
So you're gone,
Yes.
so she gets to eat out.
She picks
Wow,
stuff up.
she's a smart
So
woman.
I'm
I
saving
appreciate
money
her.
by going and getting a free meal somewhere, and then
So that
she's
she can spend the money.
so she can spend money and pick food
Good
up, right?
job, Jason,
Oh,
contributing to the
doesn't make
family. I
sense,
like
does it?
this.
Not at
Oh,
all.
Jennifer's a smart lady.
I
You guys
know.
should all know her. She's a
Not
smart
work,
one.
not
Okay,
working.
so today we're going to talk about pain and why change might be painful, but why it's good, why it could be worth it. So, what good thing isn't painful? I mean, so just kick off the conversation. We've talked about this. I've started lifting weights and I lift heavy weights. And I'm telling you to lift heavy weights, it has to have some pain involved because if you never hurt and push yourself past what you've done, your muscles don't grow and you don't get any, you don't mow it. Now, there is a difference between, you know, painful, like stretching muscles and making them grow versus pain where I've injured myself and now I can't lift again for 3 more weeks. That's a bigger problem. So that's kind of the same thing I think about when I think about system change. You want to be painful enough to have that growth potential, but you don't want it to be smashing change where then you've broken everything and then everything can't put it back together. And in our state, we've done both. So, Jason, where are you thinking about this today when you think about change?
I think about discomfort. There's a
Just,
certain level of discomfort that we all need to experience to change, right? Because no
yep,
one's going to change unless things are so undeniably difficult that I mean, people don't change because they change because they have to, right?
yes,
Like it's just true, right? But you have to have the right mindset. So, I
yes,
kind of think about the first marathon I ever ran. It's
yeah,
90% psychological, 10% physical, right? It's pushing your
yeah,
body to the brink but having the emotional capacity to see it through. And this is where we miss when we come to change science is the emotional connection we have to doing something the same way we've always done it. And that's really
yeah,
what we need to spend more time talking about because we all get stuck doing what we've always done because it's comfortable. Like it doesn't matter how bad the system is, if I understand it, I'm going to keep doing it that way. And I'm reminded daily when I just did a deep dive into a state next door to us with their behavioral health system, and I met with one of their senior folks within their Department of Human Services, and stuff hasn't been updated since the 2018, 2020, like everything. And I'm like, what's going on?
yeah,
Well, you
yeah.
know,
So I don't think I've told this story in a minute, but when I was running for office, I was going to change the mental health system. And back in the day, we
yeah,
were a 99 county system, and you had people using their money for substance use to buy cop cars so people sobered up in the back. And I hear that guy's still around because I just heard a recent story kind of similar. Maybe the same dude. So anyway, I forgot the person's name because I didn't want to injure anyone. But nonetheless, we went through that whole process, and you were part of that, Jason, and
Mhm.
nobody liked the system. Not
No.
one person had a good thing to say about the system, not one. And so nobody liked it, nobody liked it, nobody liked it. But when we got to change, holy gizmollies. And I used to have to say, and I must have said this 1,000 times, nobody liked it. We're not going to stay here. It's like,
Right.
we're going this way because you don't like it. So you don't like it. It's not working. We're not staying here. But I had to just say that over and over and over
Yep.
because they'd be like, oh my God, we need to go back. And I'm like, no. And I'd have quotes for people. This is what you've said. Why would you stay here? Right. And you have to call people
Right.
on that because they're like, oh my God. And if you recall, you might have recalled, we had
Yeah.
lots of letters to the editor about how I was the worst person in the whole world and I was blowing up systems and all these things. Fun fact, fast forward a bunch of years, same people wrote letters to the editor about this was the greatest change ever. And boy, are they
Uh-huh.
so glad that they were a part of it and that they were a cheerleader and a sponsor,
Yeah.
which I cut those out too because I kept them right next to the ones where they chewed me out. But
Yeah.
I'm like, wild to me. And but if you think about it from a psychological perspective, there's different types of people. And this isn't in our notes, but I'm going to type it into it real quick. But there's early adopters. So Jason's an early adopter, especially in tech. If there's a brand new thing from Apple, there's a brand new thing on his watch, and there's brand new updates. He will be on the road and update all of it because he wants to be the brand new first person with all the adopter. Jason likes change.
Yep.
There's other people who carry flip phones around, and we've been off the flip phone situation now for 20 plus years. But by God, they're keeping the flip phone until it doesn't work anymore. And if they ever had to figure out email, bless their hearts, because they are just not the changers. And then there's a group of us in the middle that may not be the brand spanking new change agents, but we're the ones in the
Mhm.
middle that are like, see the value, don't want the first version, but I'll wait till the second version and let them work out the bugs and then I'll change. So there's different personalities. And this really, really impacts this because people really struggle in general with change, but some personalities a whole lot more. Because I mean, you have to admit, Jason, you really are a person that's like, hey, that could be good. Let's do that. Even and there's other people that are like, I don't know about that. And you've run into that when you're talking behavioral health.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing to remember is we have to pace ourselves, right?
Yes,
Because
yes,
we can
yes.
get fatigued very easily, right? So even those early adopters, at some point, if we push too much change too quickly, can get easily fatigued and not be able to keep up. And we live in a time of rapid change. And I think
Yes,
that we have to remind ourselves, right,
yes,
that it's a marathon, not a sprint. And when we think about changing systems, it's long term. I mean,
yes.
we're still keeping tabs on the project you started doing almost a
Ooh,
decade ago
yeah,
in North Dakota, right?
yeah,
Like it's just coming to fruition and we'll see a new state hospital up there in 2027, right? Like, so
yeah.
from when the time that you started talking to them about change, and then we went back and talked to them about change, to an architect then asking us, hey, listen to where we're at. This is what we're doing. Um, that's a decade, Renee. Like,
Yeah.
that is a long-term change.
And just think about, we actually did a project in the middle where they tried to hijack it and change it. If
Yeah,
you recall, they
yeah, I
tried to
know.
not rebuild a hospital halfway
Yep,
through that decade.
yep,
They called us back to please write them a
yep,
report that says that they didn't need that hospital, which is not at all what we did because we're like, what are you talking about? We just said this, we're not changing our
right,
mind. But I think they really wanted us to change our mind to try to
right.
hijack it. And so you get along the way and people hijack it. That's just part of the game. The other thing people don't remember, and you should from systems, especially state systems, even if the vision is completely outlandish and you get so worried about what that could be, the odds are most of it doesn't happen.
Mhm.
And so you're generally going in a direction, but you and I have been around this long enough to know, even if you had the most perfect big picture where this is going, you rarely get there because of all the different change management things
Mhm.
that happen along the way. So some people freak out about what they think could be the ultimate ending and they lose their job or whatever.
Yeah,
And the reality is you don't get there. So they get stuck with not understanding that we're going in a direction and not the final product. And so then they don't want to go at all because they're like, well, the final product, I lose my job. And you're like, wait, no way, that's not ever going to happen. But they can't see that. And so
right.
there's people that just don't have that ability to see. And when you have a lack of leadership, which ties to our last conversation, the lack of leadership with somebody who's able to speak that and speak the vision in a way that gives them a glimpse in their future, they really get scared, and then they write letters to the editor and yell at me.
Well, or
So,
worse, they leave, right? And so,
oh
we
yeah,
see
yeah,
this in the literature a lot, and it's referred to as tribal knowledge, right? When you lose key information from people, sometimes
yeah,
change is just forced. And then you lose people who have information in their heads that didn't actually make it in a manual or didn't make it in the data set.
true that.
And then it's lost forever. And then we're making it up from scratch. So when we don't do thoughtful change, it becomes a resistance and then it actually can be worse, right? So it's how do you move people through it? And that key in leadership, being able to
Yeah.
move people through it.
Yeah. And it really, really gets bumpy when you lose your leader. So, like here in Iowa, we've been through this big change to districts for behavioral health, and then the director left.
Right.
So you had the person that had the vision, who shared the vision, who owned the vision, now is gone. And so you've got to transition to your point of, okay, but this is also where maybe some of the rough edges of that really weren't going to work. And so the
Mm.
next person can come in and be like, okay, we're going this direction, but these pieces we're leaving behind. And that's not always a bad thing. And then, like I'm always going to remind everybody, because so and so left, there's probably projects you can stop now. So just always circle back, be like, are we stuck doing this because so and so was here because they just left? So now we don't have to.
Right.
Don't forget that piece, because sometimes legacy stuff gets stuck with so and so and they went on. So there can be some value add to people moving out. But to your point, you can lose a lot of knowledge and a lot of value, if that. And then it bogs it down, right? We just do the same
Right.
thing again and have to. I mean, how many reports did we have to write for a state hospital? I mean, literally, and we weren't the only two. We did two, and then
Right.
they brought in another group that between
Yeah.
us, and they might have still been doing the one after that. So there was two more. So it was like four reports plus to get them to
Yeah.
finally be like, we really should do. We
Yeah.
told you that a long time
Yeah.
ago, but it also takes that amount of time to have gotten the legislature on board to fund it, to get the
Mhm.
governor to prioritize it, so there's like pieces that have to line up time wise. And so I've had to learn the very hard way that I wanted stuff done then, and
Yeah.
I'm watching it now. And what's fun is, to be fair, I started in the legislature and initiated some things that are coming to fruition today. I'm not
Mhm.
there anymore, but I got to kick some stuff
Mhm.
off that. And the final version, is it always the way I totally envisioned it then? No, but should it be? AI wasn't the thing then.
Right.
Telehealth really wasn't the thing then. So should what I envisioned 15 years ago be the current product in behavioral health? Probably not, because there's all this other technology and things that came in that time frame that needs to be added to the vision. And so you just have to look at it different, but you have to be a person who's comfortable with change. And I think that's a big part of this
Yeah.
conversation, because not everybody is.
And it's okay. Like there's a happy medium between
Yeah.
going too fast and going too slow,
Yep.
right? And that's not something that is easy to understand, because sometimes it's better to take a little bit of extra time and actually really understand the issues than to rush, 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 rush and make so significant mistakes that are so costly that you can't recover from. And I think that's a difficult balancing act for a lot of folks, whether it
Yep.
be in our legislator or CEOs, or others. That's challenging.
Well, and in the legislature and the governor's office, right? When they're like, I'm not running again, now that they have the end of their tenure. And that's when you see some pushes for some wild things sometimes,
Mhm.
because they're like, I need to leave my legacy,
Right.
hell or high water. And some of that's bad. And so it's like, you know, I mean, I get the general gist of what some people want to do, but at the same time, it's like, we can't just shove this through because it's your last year. And
Mhm.
then you hear that people, we call it the parting gift of so and so because they've retired this year. Oh boy. And so it's just rough for those of us in the world that live in it. And they're like, that system has to work, people. We can't just do these things. So talk to us a little bit about data. We've mentioned this before early on in this whole process, but are we really good at changing systems, Jason? How is it working?
No, nobody is, right? And there's
No.
lots of data out there. I think kind of the standard data you see across the board for lots of system changes is 70% of them fail. I mean, we
Mm,
track them really tightly in digital transformations, right? We think
right.
about IT adoptions, but literally most of them don't actually meet the objectives they set out to reach.
Right.
And that's really the same with most change. I mean, I think when you think about a lot of changes, it was just New Year's and we all did our New Year's resolution.
Mm,
How many of us followed through with that
mm,
here by the middle of February? Most people don't, right? We always talk about that every year. Like that's a change. That's a setting a goal. It's trying to reach something. We're really bad at doing that. Really bad.
really, really bad. So that's the other thing, though. If people really knew that, those folks that really freak out about this change would calm down some. Like, because the reality is, a lot of it doesn't work. So again, you've got this grandiose vision and whatever. So I picked that up pretty early trying to redesign the system. So instead of trying to say all the final product, because I didn't really know, it was more like, hey, this is the direction we're going. And it took a long time. The goal really was they wanted it to move toward a statewide system, but that's not the first iteration. The first iteration was those weird regions that were chosen by which county supervisors liked other county supervisors. And if that county didn't like that county, they were kicked out. And that literally is how it started, right? And everybody's like, well, this didn't work very good. Of course it didn't. But we knew that because you needed a bite-sized step. We weren't ready to go statewide. Then it moved to the state paying for all of it. So then it became statewide. And then you still had the regions for a bit. That was really bumpy too. And so now they finally moved to districts where the state owns the whole thing, pays for the whole thing, and we'll see, right? Is this the final iteration? I don't know. But it's like, it's different, but now funding's different. Who's in charge is different. Right now we have one ASO for the whole state. So it really has, did I have that vision of this is where we would be 15 years ago? No, but I knew the state needed to take over because it made no darn sense for property taxes to pay for behavioral health. Never did, never will, still won't
No.
to this day. So
Now,
that
in
part never
some
made sense.
ways, but in some ways, it was really painful. And instead of ripping the
100%.
Band-Aid off, we did this long, slow walk to get it done. And so in some ways, that may not have been helpful. And in some ways, we're still paying the price for taking such a slow roll to get this
Right.
done.
But I don't know. You think about where we were when we first started that conversation. If we just said, "Hey, supervisors, you're no longer going to
Yeah,
have control over the money,"
yeah, it's true.
woo, right?
It's
It was
true.
already like, "Hey, we're going to take away your fiefdom of your county line." I mean, I just don't think. I mean, that is not what I wanted. I wanted statewide that day. I wanted it back then. But some
Mhm.
wiser people than me, who'd been around a long time in government, who understood bureaucracy, said, "Renee, you can't move that fast." And so I then had to go the other direction. And I was like, that doesn't make sense to me. It should go faster. So should it have taken us long? Probably not. But at the same time, I don't know. I mean, I'm not the bureaucrat that stayed there the whole time to make it so. So, it's kind of a
I
weird.
don't think there's many bureaucrats left from that time.
I wouldn't know, Jason. I mean, it's
I
been a wild
There's
ride,
not
right?
many left over there.
Well, which to be fair is really funny. And another soapbox. There's these meetings about some of this happening at the Capitol. And the few of us that do remember this, me and Jason, and a few others who were there the first time don't get invited to those meetings. So they have no idea historically how they got to where they are. And
Well,
it's kind of hilarious.
well, I go to meetings uninvited. And I was at the Capitol here a few weeks ago, and I went and reminded the chair of the committee after the meeting of why something was the case because I don't know why it wasn't brought up by HHS. The real reason, the money wasn't there. And I went up to the chair and I said, let me just remind you because I'm probably the only one in the room that actually understands it and can tell you this. Um,
Like I actually did that job. One of the ones when they were talking about PMIC
yeah,
worked there. So like,
yeah.
let me just circle back. Anybody in the room done one of these jobs? No. Okay, I have. Let me chat about this.
Yeah.
Like really kind of crazy, but that's why it's important to be in the room. Sorry, we're off topic. So what happens though when we fail? We lose. This is a perfectly good point. We lose focus. Look at us. We're already lost focus. But you see it all the time, right? You have this
Yep.
initiative, you've got this change in mind, you're going this direction, and then something happens like a budget crunch or a leadership change or a staffing change or just busier season in life. More clients showed up or less clients showed up or just whatever. And then all of a sudden it's not top of mind anymore. We didn't write it down. We did the resolution type version. 2 weeks later, we forgot we were doing it. We see it all the time.
All the
All the time.
time. I
All the
mean,
time.
and that's I mean, it's great. You have to have a visionary in charge of these things, right?
Yeah.
But visionaries are great at having ideas. but they suck at follow through
Right.
and sustaining projects, right? And so this is really about the team. Like, do you have the parts you need to see these things through? And I can relate. There's some things I suck at follow through on. And so you don't want me to be your follow through guy. But that's where you have to design this so you have everything you need to make sure there's checks and balances and accountability to make sure that your project is sustainable.
Yeah. And the sustainability piece is really key. You just mentioned, it's when you're talking change, it needs to stick and last. And so it's one of those things that, and I can tell you today, we're never going back to county-based behavioral health, right? But the first multiple years, I wasn't totally sure, right?
Yeah.
Because it was like,
Yeah.
is this really going to stick? Because they pushed
Right.
hard. And
Right.
so at some points they were like, maybe this change doesn't stick. But now
Yeah.
that we're in 3 iterations or 4 down the road, it's
Yeah.
stuck. And so it takes the time to even sustain it, right? And then they've messed with funding different ways. Some was good, some was awful, some was right, some was wrong. But again, they tried it, gonna try to flesh it out. And so it's like you have to just think about like all of that. And when you're really making a system change, you have to take a look back. And this is what I think is missing in our state, besides the two of us and maybe a handful of others, who is going to even look back and be like, is this better than where we were? Because everybody's
Mhm.
moved on. They don't remember what it was like. And so they can all talk about how it's bad now or the good old days. And I'm like, the good old days, woo. Were you there? Because, like, wow. So it's like you need that for that sustainability. You need to be able to have
Well,
that
and you
that
just
person in a
mentioned something really
spreadsheet.
important that isn't even on our list is do we measure and have data to reflect on was
Absolutely.
this change worth it?
Was
And
the change worth it?
I've been asking some questions that people don't appreciate because I've been a little reflective about our privatized managed care organizations here
Ooh,
in the
ooh,
state. And because
uh-oh,
I remember
uh-oh.
what we were told we would save. Like there was dollars and there was
Mhm,
services and
mhm,
what we were supposed to get from it. And guess
mhm,
what? None of that
mhm.
happened.
And if
And
it did, they can't prove it.
no. And so I'm
They weren't
like,
measuring
so
it.
we
So do
did
you
all
know?
this, but it's costing us more instead of saving us money.
But they're going to tell you that that was just the price of increase of healthcare since then.
Of course, because things changed, right? But things are always going to change. But wait a minute, the reason we made the change didn't end up being valid.
I
And
don't
so
think they thought through leaving you on the MAC committee that long for that
I
to come full circle. They
well, I
didn't think
know
this
maybe
through.
well this might get me kicked off now. Um
You can't
thanks
get
Renee.
kicked off. You've
Um
tried.
but I mean I think it's reasonable to we have to reflect on change. There's
Yeah.
sometimes we make changes and it's not good.
No.
Um, and it's okay to be like, you know what, that was a bad change. And so now we need to pivot and make a different change to get us back on track to the goal we're trying to
Well,
achieve.
you and I talked about this with just our own business goals, right? We had some goals related to guests, and you and I were going to do the follow up. We
Right.
should have known that was a bad choice.
Yeah, that was a
You
bad
and
idea.
I are busy people, and
Yeah,
that's not our thing. But we
right.
were like, no, we don't need administrative help for this. We'll scale back. We'll take this on ourselves. And did it work? It didn't.
No.
But you know what? We changed that again, and now we have a different plan because we looked back at the year and went, well, that would be a piece we could change because it didn't go the way we wanted, and now we can readdress it. That's a tiny, tiny example of the what all of you in the world are thinking about out there, but it's a perfectly good one because the goal was still a good goal. The strategy we chose, we just didn't take into consideration our strengths and our weaknesses very well, and our
Mhm.
time availability and some of those things. And so then when you look back, you're like, wow, we still want the goal, but wow, that strategy, we need some help. So who's a better person we can help us with that? And that's how this should work. So in behavioral health, and I think to be fair, the conversation you were part of related to subacute, I just want anybody out there that listens to subacute, let me explain. I wrote that rule, literally wrote that rule, cracked myself up, but here we are. But as I've told Jason, we wrote it for a very different thing. Then 15
Yep.
years ago, again, remember we talked about how the world has changed?
Yep.
So today, when they're like, well, the rule doesn't match well, of course it doesn't, because it was never for what they're saying it's for today. It just absolutely was not when it was written. And so, does it need to be changed? Yes. I mean, I'm not even going to be mad about that because they're not about the same thing. And so sometimes we use those as barriers. We're like, well, the rule, then just fix it. I mean, for heaven's sakes, it's like,
Yeah.
That's just a crazy situation, but that's one of those many, many, many examples. It's like, that's wrong. Yeah, but it was written in a different context under a whole different plan. There were no crisis services when I wrote that rule.
Yeah. But yeah.
So there's a lot
But
of differences between
but do you know
nowadays.
how much outdated legislation we have in code today?
I'm
Like
sure lots.
like I mean, I can't even imagine.
Well, we
You
have
know,
one. There's one on the correction side of a particular type of crime that's a 10-year crime that didn't have the they have a mandatory ongoing like special sentence so they stay on parole for life for doing really bad things. But there's one particular code and it's a 10-year one. You basically have to wait till all those 10 years are over so there can't possibly be anyone in the system so they can clean it up because it's one politically nobody's going to want to vote to fix.
mm,
So you actually have to wait till every last one of the people that got charged with this during this time period exists. And when the last one clears, hey, we could put it in the cleanup code and get rid of
yeah.
it. That's wild. But that's how sometimes this stuff happens because it's like this guy's in on this charge attached to here. The law's changed here, but we still have to consider this guy.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of that in behavioral health too. It's like that was the rule because that was the law then, but it's like, man, the whole world has shifted and we didn't change it. So when you're talking about change management, there's a lot in that space and looking backwards and cleaning that mess up is key. And if you never look backwards, you don't even know that you've got a mess behind you to clean up.
Yep.
And it's causing you problems in your future that you don't even know. And it's not the sexy, again, it's not the fun, sexy change part. It's the tedious, boring stuff that will make a system better. And it's not rocket science. It's stuff that needs to be off the books, just cleaned up. And somebody has to take the time to do it. And that's a wild thought, but it is. It's like that's a big part of system change we just don't even talk about.
And when we don't do it, we just get fatigued and do nothing, right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I think that's the ending point, right? Is when we
Yeah.
don't act, we just get decision fatigue, and then we're just stuck. And
Yeah.
and that's really the takeaway, I think, as we kind of end today, is we can't just get stuck. We have to figure out how to manage through the change.
One of our good clients, you'll know the story immediately when I talk, but one of our good provider friends was very helpful with the department with giving them all the data and helping and the stats and all the stuff until they figured out they're like, what is it in this for me? Right. They were all gung ho about the change and helping and doing all this. And then at some point they just decided, you know what? Why am I doing all this extra work for no reason? And they hit that spot and are like, I'm no longer going to be of help. That did not help our system as a big picture because they were an awesome provider and awesome help.
Yep.
But they got to this and they're like, that's just too much. They're asking too much. There's no return on this investment. So why do I need to put all this work and time and effort into what the department wants? And so they just bowed out. I don't know if the department noticed or didn't, but that's wild because we got here, right? We made them
Yep.
so tired that they're just like, yeah, we
Yep.
don't want to participate in
Yep.
this anymore. We're just going to go run our business. And that's
Yep.
really sad. We lost a really great partner at the
Mhm.
table. So before we go, we want to talk about the recovering politician self-care policy of the week. Recovery is key. The older I get, the more I need rest, but not just any rest, like not just sit on my couch and just do nothing, but like purposeful rest to let my body heal. I figured out that my stress hormones were all screwed up because I was working out too much. Wild. And so I actually now have to take days off. And it's fun to take days off, but it's like I do better if I know I'm doing it for a purpose, not just being a slug or sitting on the couch. So recovery is really important. So I'm learning more about rest and being intentional in my rest and trying to, and even looking at my calendar for the week and be like, okay, this is going to be a late night. So how was the next morning? And I can do maybe one or two of those, but then I need maybe a sleep in morning. I'm just trying to be a little more thoughtful about like, my rest and my timing. So I know, Jason, with you with travel, I know you've been talking about that before. You got any thoughts on as you really pick up this new couple of contracts in different states, you guys are going to be traveling a lot. And so what are you thinking about how you're going to stay
Well,
on your rest cycle?
yeah, I mean, I think, we're scheduling and the way we're doing things is we're in two different states that are in two different directions. And so we're trying to do 1 week of work a month, which means we fly to one and then fly to the other and then fly home, which is sometimes a full week on the road. And so, managing, I need to fit in 3 runs at least or go ride the bike
Mm.
in the hotel. So it's, and managing so the travel days. aren't too exhausting, right? Like
Right.
staying on a regular sleep cycle, I've always said that's really important. And so we've always scheduled our travel around that. Now I can't control airline delays,
Right.
weather, and blizzards, and all of those different things that are going to
Well,
impact this. But I think we've taken good steps. I now can get into airport lounges. So when we go through bigger airports, I
why
can
not?
use my priority pass. But
Yeah.
it seems silly, but those are places to rest, rejuvenate, and relax and
Yeah.
get away from the hubbub that you find. And so I used to kind of be snarky about that, but if you're going to have to do this type of stuff, you have to build in protections for yourself to take care of
Yeah.
yourself. And so if it's grabbing a snack here and there and be having the ability, and I'm lucky to be in a place I can have the ability to be able to take advantage of some of those things,
Yeah.
um, and stay at the top of my game, because I'm not worthwhile to do the work I do if I'm exhausted,
No.
and not my best. So, I have to put myself first, and I think that it's finding that balance is going to be really important.
Yeah. And knowing you guys like I do, you're going to do it this way for a little bit. And if it's not working for you, you'll end up changing your travel plans again because you'll be like, this is what we think is going to work. And we're going to try this. And if you get into it and be like, this is awful, I can already know that that'll be something you change. But even Brent's
Yes.
carrying, like, there was some snacks in the pantry. I was like, I don't know what to do with these. He's like, I'm going to throw those in my travel bag because in case we
Yep.
get stuck and whatever. So
Yep.
just you guys are thinking more in advance about what this could
And
be.
he finally got TSA pre-check
I
after
know.
all
I
this
couldn't figure
time.
I think it was you because it wasn't me. I tried. So the things we learn, folks. Talk about system change for people who are the last to change the system. I'm married to one of those people. So he
Oh.
likes to change the system at the absolute last when he can't
He
take it
was a
anymore.
late adopter to TSA
Late
pre-check,
adopter.
but
That's it.
finally came along with the program on
Finally
that.
came along.
So,
So today, everybody, we talked about the ground impact series on the change systems without the pain. And we're going to tell you it's going to be painful, but we're really talking about discomfort pain, not like you broke your ankle pain. And if it's you broke your ankle pain, we're in the wrong place and we really did the wrong thing way too fast, way too much without the right guardrails in place. And so you're trying, but it is going to be discomfortable. It is going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be challenging sometimes to change. But if you have a clear vision and a clear leader who keeps sharing that vision, you could know that you're going in a better direction. And sometimes change is absolutely required to get to where you want to go. So next time, everybody will continue on this topic on the Ground series. And then after that, I think we're going to be talking about peer support, which I'm kind of excited to talk about some more. So before we go, don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube. If you leave us a review, we'll send you a prize. Thanks, everybody.